On the morning of December 15, 2007, Thelma and Richard Payne were jolted from this bed by surprise.
Things were crashing all over the place, and it sounded like somebody was out there in the other room pulling out drawers and just letting them drop, and I thought, somebody's out there ransacking our house.
It wasn't a thief.
So I got out of bed and looked, and I saw all of these things happening. The floor parting, the ceiling cracking, the sidewalls cracking, and hearing all this stuff falling,
Their home of 51 years had exploded and shifted on its foundation. Across the street on the same morning, Ruth Cooper woke up to an unusual sight in her garage.
When we opened up the garage door, there's this water up in the air, 6 feet in the air, like a fountain.
It was coming from her well. The Ohio Department of Natural Resources determined that highly pressurized methane had entered their aquifer. Ohio Valley Energy was held accountable for improperly constructing and monitoring a vertical well at the end of the road.
They could have reacted better initially when they were drilling their well and cementing the well, and then when they noticed some pressure issues inside their casing.
For 2 years after the blast, Cooper and more than 20 of her neighbors in Bainbridge, Ohio were not able to drink or cook with water from their faucet. But for washing clothes, taking showers, and cleaning the house, Cooper's well water was a necessity.
You just hope that when you took your shower that there wasn't black at that point in time.
In 2010, the state reacted to the Bainbridge incident with Ohio Senate Bill 165. It lays out guidelines for the construction of wells, the hydraulic fracturing process, and more. Bill co-sponsor Dave Hall says the new guidelines will prevent future accidents from happening.
We just don't just put a piece of casing down in a well and through your water table and say that's your only protection. Now we telescope pipes in between that pipes, and in between the pipes we actually cement. So we have a backup.
The state says what happened in Bainbridge was a one-time problem, but in the small city of Dimock, Pennsylvania, water contamination has plagued their town. It's been at the center of a national debate over gas drilling and the extraction technique known as hydraulic fracturing. It's a process where millions of gallons of sand, water, and chemicals are blasted deep into the earth. This shatters underground shale and frees natural gas for collection. For Ron and Jean Carter, this process has hit home. In 2009, Cabot Oil and Gas drilled a well just more than 300 feet from their front porch. It was after they started drilling that Jean became concerned.
I noticed that the water had an odor to it. Put a little in a glass and I tasted of it and I thought, uh-oh, we have a problem.
The Carters say they had their water tested multiple times and were told it was not safe to drink. Cabot denies responsibility for the water contamination in the county.
We don't think that our actions impacted their water. We don't think our actions are causing the concerns that they're claiming are there.
The Carters are one of 4 families in Dimock who are now receiving daily water deliveries on behalf of the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. Their decision to deliver water was announced at the end of last month. The EPA collected water samples from 57 homes in Dimock and intends to collect about a dozen more. They say they expect to have validated results next week.
We're glad that they did. We're glad that EPA stepped in.
But not everyone is pleased.
We believe that they had no basis for coming in and retesting the water or providing water.
Cabot Oil and Gas has accused the EPA of selectively choosing data on substances it was concerned about in order to reach a result it had predetermined. In response to that, the EPA issued a statement. We have been clear and forthright about the basis of our actions and acknowledge that uncertainties about the data made available to the agency existed. We acknowledge that the data available to us was incomplete and of uncertain quality, and based on this determined the need to conduct sampling of wells. Across the street from Ron and Jean Carter, their son Dusty is not receiving replacement water from the EPA.
They said they got to do years of testing. Well, in years of testing, where am I? Still here now. It's been 2 years that my water's been bad.
In neighboring Bradford County, 80-year-old Max CHILSON has had contaminated water since May.
Came in, cooked my dinner, and went back out, looked in the washing machine. washing machine was jet black.
His house is surrounded by well pads. He says multiple people have come to test his water. Results from a test in August conducted by Fairway Laboratories shows high levels of sodium, strontium, barium, and fuel diesel. The same test found so many chloroforms in his water that they deemed it not fit for human consumption. He shows us a jar of his water that contains black solids.
Right?
CHILSON has not been hooked up to replacement water but receives 5-gallon jugs from the energy company.
If you have to carry water in the house and heat it on a stove like Grandma did, carry it in your bathtub, and heat all your water on the stove for dishes, well, that sure is called an impact. I wish everybody could get a little taste of that.
Bradford County resident Sherry Vargason gets a taste of it too. When she draws a glass of water, it's fizzy and cloudy. But that's not all.
There's some sort of cocktail in there that my water doesn't freeze.
She's got so much methane in her water that it's explosive. The source of the contaminated water is highly debated among scientists, environmentalists, and the oil and gas industry. One thought is that the contaminants migrated into the water long before drilling ever took place.
You can go up and down eastern Ohio and you can light faucets from water wells all day long. That's because you find naturally occurring natural gas.
Others debate about whether or not hydraulic fracturing is the cause for the contamination. A University of Texas study published earlier this month found no link between hydraulic fracturing and water contamination.
There are other parts of shale gas development that can lead to fluids getting into groundwater supplies, but not from the hydraulic fracturing itself.
In December, the EPA released a draft report of its groundwater investigation in Pavilion, Wyoming. The report suggests that compounds found in the aquifer could have been associated with hydraulic fracturing. The study is now undergoing a peer review, but it's the first sign that fracking and water contamination could be linked. Back in Ohio, one state lawmaker introduced a bill that would put a moratorium on fracking until a federal study by the EPA about its impacts on drinking water resources is complete.
Given the experience in other states, I don't think it's unreasonable to say that we should be cautious as we move forward with fracking.
As nationwide studies continue to investigate whether or not shale gas development is a cause for public concern, Thelma and Richard Payne are just thankful for surviving.
That bothered me as much as anything the first year. Why are we here? I haven't figured that out for sure yet, but I'm still here trying to figure it out.
For WOUB News, I'm Taylor Mearfendereski.